To all who listen to this happy pod, welcome. My name is Noah Parker, and welcome to my world of wonder. Today, I am joined by the woman responsible for everything that I have become, give or take. That is my mother, Lynn, I guess. I didn't really talk about whether or not I was allowed to say your name before, but it is your name. So.
That is my name. Although from here on, it's going to be Mom, so it doesn't really matter.
You are the official mom of the podcast, which you were already, but no one else knew it. But now they do.
Okay, so part of my visit on your podcast, each time I come,
I like this.
there will be surprises.
Now, question, are these gifts or are these...
These are for you.
Okay.
Gifty things for you that you do not have to return. Now, the first one I understand is going to be over the top and blow your mind and hopefully not distract you from the topic of today.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know if you want to close your eyes and I'll just put it behind the castle or in front of the castle.
Right there.
Okay, and so then you can go from there. Okay?
All right, I'm closing my eyes for.
Are you okay?
For the podcast listeners and not the YouTube watchers.
Alrighty, so we will put that right there. And okay, go ahead. Oh yes,
you found it.
I always found it. It was never not there.
Oh. You got me good.
I just lied.
You got me good. Yeah. So as we've talked about on several podcasts before now, I am a huge Rubik's Cube fan. I actually have 3 other Disney branded Rubik's Cubes. And this is one that I saw when I went to Disneyland and I forgot to buy before I left. And my mom actually lives in Florida, about 2 hours away from Disney World. And so she's my smuggler when I need stuff. And so I asked her, I was like, will you please try to find it for me and buy it, and I'll Venmo you or whatever and just ship it out to me, because I totally forgot to buy it and I'm kind of upset. So thank you very much, Mom. I'm excited to put that with my collection.
I think those are like the sides that it's got. I'm not 100% sure. So it shows the sides and all that.
Oh, I guess I just realized that I said all of that, but I didn't actually tell the audio listeners. It is the Disney 100 Rubik's Cube.
The Disney 100.
Yeah. So I have 3 from Walt Disney World, or they're Disney parks. They're not specific to Disney World. They have Disney World, Disneyland, and all that stuff on them. But this is Disney 100, and I'm very excited about it because I've been waiting to add it to my collection. That's
kind of the big one for these podcasts.
That's exciting. I love it.
There you go.
I'm like, maybe I won't take this one out of the package, but I've taken every other one out of the package so far, so I might as well take it out and put it with the others. They don't get played with a lot, because I did that with the first one, where I took it out of the box and I played with it a lot, and the stickers are terrible, so I'm trying to find one on eBay to replace it. They're easier to find, but they're not reasonably priced, in my opinion. So but excellent. Well, thanks, Mama.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. That gets to live there for the rest of the YouTube video.
Yay.
But yeah, so on that note, we'll kind of jump down to today's topic, and we have decided to kind of compare and contrast things in Disneyland and things in Disney World. Well, things that are the same, but they're different. So some of the things we won't be talking about is like Galaxy's Edge, because it is virtually the exact same in both sides of the country. It's the only difference between the two is I think Disneyland is technically a little longer between the far side by the Resistance entrance and the entrance by the Empire side, and the entrance is in a different spot.
Right.
And I actually think Disneyland has 3 entrances to Galaxy's Edge, and I think Disney World only has 2.
Yeah, Disney World only has 2, from Toy Story Land and from
whatever Muppet Square, whatever it's called.
Or whatever.
Yeah, whatever they rebranded.
The former Streets of America.
Yeah. But Disneyland has an entrance from Critter Country, or I can't remember exactly where it is. It wasn't there
when I went. I went in 2018, so I haven't even seen it.
I don't remember.
They were building it. So
there's one in the middle of... there's like one in the middle. It's like an extra one, but it's not like in the middle. It's more like towards the end. But once you're actually inside the land, they're identical. Everything is laid out the same. I guess the only other differences would be like the X-Wing is in one spot in Disneyland, and it's on the opposite side of the trail in Disney World.
Do they still have like the same things as far as like where you build the lightsabers and you
Yeah.
can build the droids and stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
that's the same.
Savi's is
Olga-
in reference
Olga's
to that.
Cantina is all still
All
the
of that
same?
stuff is in the
Okay.
exact same spot, and it's all the exact same.
And the little shops
The only
with the little
difference is
furry
what's
creatures and all
actually
that.
inside of them.
Okay.
Disneyland seems to have a better variety than Disney World. I don't know. It's hard to get the things down to the other side of the coast, I guess. But anyway, like I said, that's not what we're talking about.
That is not.
But yeah, so just things that are the same, but they are different. So like one example is going to be Space Mountain. They're the same ride, but they're different rides. So yeah, really quick, I will preface by saying my mom is here on a little bit of a vacation for herself and my dad, because my little brother Caleb, who was in a couple episodes ago and he's been in a couple episodes, is getting married tomorrow. So we got them out here to Colorado so they could be at the wedding. And Mom's here. Like I said before, she's the reason that I am the way that I am. So I felt it was necessary to bring her on the podcast. So cool.
And it's always my pleasure to lend a hand to all of your endeavors, and whether that's through video, like you had mentioned that in another podcast, that we did Journey of Water inspired by Moana, that I did some of those videos. That'll be another time. But that's, we live down there, and it's just really fun and exciting to help you any way that we can. And I'll take those trips to help, because I know
if I gotta just twist your arm like
you
that,
have to twist my arm to do it.
For Noah, I guess I'll go. Awesome. So first one we're going to talk about, I need to lower my levels there a little bit. I'm getting a little excited here. First we're going to talk about is Space Mountain. I think we're going to hit one that you haven't ridden, and I purposely left out one that I didn't ride. If you have anything you want to mention, feel free to throw it in.
Okay.
This show notes are not this show notes. I learned my grammar from Dad.
Grammar.
These show notes are mainly a road map, but they are not by any means like law. So, why don't you share your thoughts on which one you like better? Do you like Disneyland Space Mountain better or Disney World Space Mountain better?
So I do like Disneyland Space Mountain better. It's actually called Hyperspace Mountain. And I think they changed it at Christmas. Is it Christmas or Halloween?
I think it's Christmas. I think they still do it. I don't know.
Well,
my knowledge
the
isn't
thing
all
that
there.
I like, so I think I don't know if the overall tracks are the same. I don't know. I can't remember those concepts, but the ride cars are the things that I really like. I've never been a fan of the sit in front of each other kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward.
It is kind of awkward. And so Hyperspace Mountain, the car is two people sitting next to each other, versus Space Mountain at Disney World, where it's per car. There's 3 individual like seats for people.
Right.
And so you can't get as many people in. You get 3 people in a car, and then 3 people in the next car. Those 2 are conjoined.
Right. And then that's the whole train.
Yeah. And then Hyperspace Mountain, I think it's 4 people in each car. And there's 2 cars joined together, but you sit side by side. And I actually prefer that, because I just like that when you're riding with somebody.
Yeah. The thing that I always found weird is like whenever we've gone, I'm with Mom, by the way, but I do prefer the one in Disneyland. But there's a couple other reasons, but that's one of them. Like when we would go to Disney World as a family vacation, or like I guess in 2021 is the most recent one we did.
Yeah.
And we went and we were off kilter. There was not the correct number of us to take up 2 full trains or 1 full train. It was a full train plus how many? It was me, Dad.
Well, when we went in 2021, there were 6 of us.
Was there only 6 of us?
There were you 4 kids.
So maybe I'm thinking of a time when we lived down there or something then.
Yeah. It was probably when we lived down there in 2011.
Probably.
Because
we would be off kilter. And so like,
yeah,
it would be like you, Dad, and Marcy.
Yeah.
And then me and 2 strangers.
Yeah.
Because everyone else was out doing something else.
Yeah.
And
because they were too young, too little to go on or something, or they were with Grandma Jan or something. Yeah.
I know it's not like tube style where their legs come up under yours, and that's weird and uncomfortable.
Right.
But it's like their feet are they're kind of still like straddling you, and it feels weird that like someone you don't know is behind you.
Exactly.
And it also feels weird being on the flip side.
Yes.
So I do prefer the seating arrangement in that one, but I also like the music is built into the headrests. And so they play a really cool soundtrack, and it's like super groovy music. I mean, they have nice music in the one in Disney World too, but you're racing by the speakers, and so it goes like.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't really hear it exactly because they're set in their locations. It's not like it's not like part of the ride.
Exactly.
Like on Rock and Roller Coaster where it's in the actual ride vehicle. And so yeah, I don't like those.
Yeah.
I'm not
my
gonna
favorite.
not go on it.
Well, exactly. That's my big thing too. Is like I'm gonna ride it no matter which park I'm in anyway. It's just I have a favorite. But yeah. Next one that I wanted to talk about was Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And I'll lead off on this one. So let you lead off on the last one. That's another one of those where the rides. This is actually probably the one where they're the most. Well, maybe Haunted Mansion is the most similar without being exactly the same. Mm-hmm. But Big Thunder is really, really close to being exactly the same without being copies. I like the one in Disneyland better again too, because of the special effects of the TNT explosions towards the end,
right?
Which you don't get in Disney World.
You don't get that.
All you get in Disney World is not an ear infection.
It's like steam coming off.
Aid.
That's all.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah, and it's kind of cool because the guys are like geyser, and you're like, see when you've been to Yellowstone,
yes,
not as impressive.
Not as impressive.
You're not as scared. But yeah, I like the special effects at the end, and I felt like it wasn't as obnoxious, the chain lift. And it's actually not the chain, it's the anti-rollback mechanism.
Right.
Sounds way louder in Disney World than it did in Disneyland. And I don't know if that was age. Like maybe I'm just getting old and now I can't hear, but it definitely seemed quieter. It was still loud, but it felt more manageable to me. But anytime you put an anti-rollback system in an enclosed room, it gets kind of gnarly. But
you're right.
What are your thoughts on the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad?
So I don't really remember the Big Thunder Mountain at Disneyland all that much. As far as the ambiance is where it's at, I actually prefer the one in Disneyland because there's more than just... So the one at Disney World, right now anyway, it is just Big Thunder. So you have to walk all the way over to that side of Frontierland.
Right, and it's the only thing.
And that's the only thing over there.
You can't even like loop back around and.
Yeah, there's nothing there, and that's where that particular park ends.
Right.
There's no Splash Mountain anymore.
Right.
It's going to be Tiana's Bayou, and there's no other rides. Whereas at Disneyland, and I think the whole ambiance I think what's it called, Critter Country or something like that.
Critter Country, yeah.
In that area.
Frontierland. Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't it called Frontierland?
Yeah, it is.
It goes into that. Why? What's funny about that? I'm confused.
I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, but like I think that's where like Winnie the Pooh and the Honey Pot things.
Yeah, that's
rides
Critter
there.
Country.
They also have like a what's it called? Quick service restaurant right there.
Oh yeah.
They have
pretty good.
one more thing over there. I can't remember what it is. There's another ride over there, but there's like 3 or 4 rides there too. I mean, so it's not just Big Thunder Mountain.
Right.
And I know at Disney World the railroad goes through there, but
yeah, it's kind of like.
I mean, that's it. I mean, right now
it's weird.
Maybe when Tiana's Bayou is completed,
I kind of am worried that that's gonna throw off the vibe more.
Right.
Because it will disconnect Big Thunder Mountain Railroad from the rest of Frontierland. Right. Because like the Bayou is not the frontier.
It's not the frontier. Exactly.
Yeah. New Orleans is definitely far and away from that. So it feels weird to me that they kind of feel like they're just breaking it off and that's going to go live over there now. So I already prefer the one at Disneyland, but the changes that they're making in the area make it worse.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I can't remember. I think Splash Mountain was over with the one at Disneyland, but it's not like right there. Not like at Disney World.
I'm trying to remember exactly where it is because it was already closed by the time we got there.
Right.
I think that was the other one that you were talking about a second ago because it's kind of over by Pooh.
Yeah.
Because it's part of Critter Country. And then you basically after you get past Splash Mountain is when you transition into being in Frontierland.
Can we segue
Disneyland.
into Splash Mountain, even though it's no longer there?
See, I'm not going to lie. I hesitated because I wanted to put it on, but I was like, it doesn't exist anymore. But I guess when it reopens, I'm pretty sure it'll be the same situation.
I think it'll be the same ride vehicles.
I think
or
so.
Similar
Or at
ride
least,
vehicles.
Yeah,
so
I don't think they're going to widen the track.
No,
in
exactly.
Disneyland.
Exactly.
So
let's
throw it in. Why not?
For Splash Mountain, again, I do prefer the one at Disney World for the similar reason that I like Space Mountain at Disneyland, because I like that side-by-side seating. At Disneyland, it was, I think you could only get like, I don't know, 4 or 5 people, and it's just one in front of the other, and that's it. And I didn't like that because, again, you can only get like 5 people in, I think.
Yeah.
And so as a family of 7, that didn't add up very well.
2 people were on their own.
Right, exactly. Or even 8 of us, whoever was there.
Right.
I can't remember. I think it was 6 of us at the
I
time.
wasn't there.
6 of us at the time, but still, you're not all getting on.
Yeah, it was the same number as the Disney World 2021 trip because basically me and Jordan swapped.
Anyway, so with Splash Mountain, I really think that they're going to use the same ride vehicles for Tiana's Bayou. So
yeah,
though we haven't seen that ride, we have seen the concept art, and I feel like it's going to be the same vehicle. So I think it's safe to say, even if we're just talking about Splash Mountain right now,
okay, that's fair.
I like those ride vehicles at Disney World better. That's
fair. I would be inclined to agree with you for the same reasons, but I can't really speak to it because I never got the opportunity to ride Splash Mountain in Disneyland. But based on the Space Mountain thing, I'm gonna say you're probably right. I think I would still prefer the one at Disney World. So,
do you remember when we went to Universal and we went on, what was it?
Dudley Do Right, something Danger Fall.
That's what the one in Disneyland was like.
See, I really didn't like the Dudley Do Right because
you got soaking wet.
Yeah, when you're walking through a queue for a water ride and there are human-sized like drying rooms, you know it's going to be a bad time, and it was.
It was so bad.
It was, and that was why we went to lunch that day, and then after lunch we drove to, I think, Hollywood Studios.
We did. We went to Hollywood Studios. It was Star Wars Day, opening day.
Yeah, we took off and we went back to Disney because we were like, nope, Universal's not for us.
Because we were pass holders back then too. So.
Yeah, and that was what kept me from Universal for so long. And I went with Rick that one time, and I'm like, definitely still prefer Disney World, but I could see myself expanding and liking both of these things now. But anywho. So we threw Splash Mountain in there. We're also going to throw in, we're not throwing in, this is actually on the list already, and that is Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
See, my issue, well, I guess, no, because I was going to say my issue is that I went on them too far apart, but no, because I went on it in 2022 in Disneyland, or in Disney World, and then just this year in Disneyland. But the issue is that I feel like the ride itself is mostly the same.
Yeah.
Except for what they're adding into Disneyland or Disney World, like right now, like as we're speaking, it's being installed.
Oh, isn't it it's the Hatbox Ghost?
The Hatbox Ghost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new Haunted Mansion movie?
No.
Okay. Well, you should watch it before
scary.
It's not. It's really not. It has some darker tones to it. There's one really dark moment that I don't think you're gonna love, but it's not like scary. It's just like kind of like emotional, like deep, kind of like wow.
Okay.
I think you should definitely watch it before you go on the Haunted Mansion after they install the Hatbox Ghost.
Okay. Are they doing it at both parks?
It's already in Disneyland.
Okay.
Has been in Disneyland for a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long. I know it wasn't there. I'm pretty sure it wasn't there when you guys went. But it was there when we went because the Hatbox Ghost is a really cool effect. And if that's the only thing that pushes it over the top, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I think I'm a little worried about where they're putting it in Disney World on the ride. And I think it makes it not flow with the story correctly. Because it's going in like before the endless hallway, I think. And you're not supposed to be able to see any spirits or ghosts or anything yet because Madame Leota hasn't conjured them out.
Right.
So it's kind of weird that you can see him. I don't know. Maybe they'll figure out a way to tell it so that it makes sense, but the movie doesn't help with that.
Okay.
But
I'll take your word for it.
I think the only other thing is I remember growing up, whenever we were in the stretching room in Disney World, you'd always be like, is the room moving lower? Are we in an elevator?
Yeah.
You know?
I still don't even know. I'm
Well,
not going to lie.
I can affirm to you right now, when you're in Disney World, you are not in an elevator. In there, the roof goes up.
The roof goes up.
And you stay still.
Okay.
In Disneyland, however, you are on an elevator and you are going under because the show building for the ride is on the other side of the railroad. And so you have to go down in the elevator to go under the railroad, and then you go on the track.
That's so cool.
So I will say, after riding both, it is very apparent that one is an elevator and one is not. I've noticed. I mean, like, I know in Disney World they have like the ground, and they kind of make it vibrate a little bit because they want you to really genuinely question it.
Yeah.
But there is a motion to the elevator that you can definitely feel. I could feel anyway in Disney World, and you know me and Caleb and our background with elevators, so it's a thing I get very conscious about. So,
right. I don't want to be stuck in an elevator.
Basically. Do you have any thoughts on the Haunted Mansion?
I don't. I know
it's not one of your favorites.
It's not one of my favorites, but I don't remember. I think the last time I probably went on it was the first time I went to Disneyland, which was in 1988.
Okay.
And talk about different, same but different. There's a lot of stuff that was like, as a kid raised on Disney World. The big like attraction was you took the monorail over to the park around Seven Seas Lagoon. And so when we went to Disneyland, you know, we just kind of parked where California Adventure is. That was a parking lot.
Right.
And we walked up. There were no trams. We're like, what?
Yeah.
And we walked under the monorail and we're like, what?
That's weird.
And went through the ticket area and stuff, and then we went to the wall, and the wall was like you could just lean on it. It was right there.
Yeah.
You don't have to jump on it or anything like you do at Disney World. And so there were just a lot of things I was just like,
wow.
So I think that's the only time that I probably rode Haunted Mansion.
Okay.
That was it.
So you wouldn't even remember if
I wouldn't even
Ghost
remember.
was there when you guys went recently.
That was like a little hot minute ago.
Fair enough.
30 something years ago.
Yeah. And I know the Hatbox Ghost wasn't there then.
Right. Yeah. So I think they do it at both parks, but I do like what they do at Halloween and Christmas. I think it's mostly Christmas though. Where they do Nightmare Before Christmas.
The Nightmare Layover.
Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty cool.
I like it.
I think it kind of breaks up.
I
won't say the monotony, but I'm going to, because
that's fair.
You know, it just becomes predictable, and so then when you add certain characteristics and you're like, oh my gosh,
right,
there's Jack Skellington. That's kind of cool.
Interesting.
Anyway,
so apparently down-resing the podcast did not solve that issue. So, and that does mean we've been recording for about 30 minutes.
Cool.
Which is awesome. We haven't been talking that long though.
And we're almost done.
We're almost done with the rides.
With the rides.
Let me pause so we can get that going again, and we'll continue. Okay, we're back. Apparently, down-resing video resolution does not solve that issue, so that's something I still got to look into. But anyway, so we had just finished talking about the Haunted Mansion, and we were going to move on to our final, the same but different, that we've picked to go on the rides category, which I don't think I've talked about before. We're doing this in categories. The first one is rides. Next one is going to be more attraction, kind of like broad spectrum deals. But yeah, so the last thing we wanted to talk about on rides is a debatable thing, whether it's a ride, attraction, or just transport. And it actually depends, I think, on which one you're talking about. So
yeah,
that is the monorail.
Yeah.
There is the Walt Disney World monorail, which is very much a transportation form. Like Mom said a moment ago, riding the monorail from the parking lot to the front gates of Disney World around Seven Seas Lagoon. I guess now, with Downtown Disney District in having a station for the monorail in Disneyland, it is more of a transportation system.
Ish.
But I will still argue that it is most definitely more of a ride. And the reason I say that is because there is absolutely no reason to take the monorail.
That's right.
It is
in Disneyland.
Yeah, in Disneyland. Yeah. If you got on the monorail and I walked to the front gates, and our goal was to meet at the castle. We would arrive there at the same time if I don't get there first.
Yes.
The person
I wholeheartedly agree.
And so it's more of a ride. It is not necessary. It is not faster. The only benefit, and actually when we went whenever we were going to Disneyland, we always took the monorail in, because taking the monorail in, you scan your ticket before you can go into the monorail station in the downtown Disney district.
Right.
And then you just go get on the monorail and you just go in the park.
It's like an entrance.
Yeah. And you can skip the front gate.
Mm-hmm.
My mistake was I never once went through the front gate of Disneyland. And I actually never went through the front gate of California Adventure either. Because we were stayed in Pixar, or I guess it's Paradise Pier Hotel is where we stayed. And Paradise Pier has a direct connection to Pixar Pier inside California Adventure. So we had our own entrance.
Right.
So I never went through the front gate. I don't know what the front of that park looks like. Well, I know what it looks like, but I don't know what it looks like from outside.
Did you not park hop, or did they not have park hopping?
We did, but the only times we ever park hopped, we went back to the hotel in between to drop off anything we were carrying, or to take a quick little breather, because apparently that's a thing we do now, is we just take breaks and we don't just stay in the parks all day.
You kids.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I guess I'm getting older. Like, as I've gotten older, I've kind of been like, well, I'm on vacation, and yes, I'm in Disney World, but I feel like I started stressing myself out too much by trying to pack so much into every single day.
Right.
And I was like, we can take a break and we can just go sit at the hotel for a little bit, and
right.
Especially in Florida, just cool off.
And from my perspective, because we can go down, like I've already been there twice this month. And I'll go again.
I'm going 2 more times.
I'm going to go
once more this month,
but
yeah.
in a 30-day period, I will have gone 4 times.
Right.
And so what we've even done too, I'm getting away from the monorail, so I'll get back to that. But
we'll circle back.
So instead of like, I need a break, which I get when you're there for 3 to 5 days, depending on what parks you're going to, whether it's Disneyland and California Adventure or Walt Disney World Resort.
Yeah.
You do need breaks.
Yeah.
When we live there, because we live there, we can go whenever. So we've even done things like we just have gone to see a new nighttime show.
Which is cool.
We just drive down there and go see that. And it's really fun to do that sort of thing. That said, I will get on board with the fact that the monorail, if you're going somewhere, it is a transportation device.
Yeah.
If you're going from Magic Kingdom to Epcot, it is, but it's also a ride, because it's not like, I don't know how long it takes, like maybe 13, 17 minutes, something like that. It takes a while.
Yeah.
It's not a ride by ride standards. Ride standards are like, 2 to 5 minutes. It's a ride, right? So I wouldn't say it's a ride per se, but if you're getting from point A to point B, yes, it's transportation.
Right.
I also don't agree that the Skyliner is transport. It is transportation, but it's also a ride. Like I'll be like, that's the only ride I want to do, and we'll make sure we go do that. But yes, the monorail at Disneyland, so it did used to serve a purpose.
Yeah.
It went from Disneyland Hotel. That was like one of the big perks. If you were a resort guest at Disneyland Hotel, you could take the monorail to the park.
Right.
And like only Disneyland resort guests or hotel guests could go that way on that monorail line. The other one, it literally just went in the park, around the park. That one was literally just a ride. Literally just a ride.
Yeah.
But the 2 at Walt Disney World, I do not consider a ride. I mean, they are a ride. They're not just transportation.
Right. They walk on that fence like nobody's business.
Yes.
They're talented, which is ironic.
Very much so. I mean,
kind of like the beam that they ride on.
Because it's not like taking the bus.
No, it's
not
way
like
more fun than just taking the bus.
The boats, you know, as the boats are, I mean, those are a ride, but they're transportation too.
Right.
You know, Skyliner is a ride, but it's transportation too. You know, there's nothing like being on the monorail, and there's that that thin concrete line that the monorail is sitting on going from point A to point B.
Right. That's super cool.
And it was super cool.
And that's one of the things I really love about Disney World. And that's why I know I told you a while back that I started to think I like Disneyland, but in Disney World, the post-trip excitement has worn off. I am back to Disney World again. I still love Disneyland, and I still want to go again. But I'm getting more excited about going back to Disney World. But one of the things I really appreciate about Disney World is, I mean, I don't know about, I mean, I kind of know about you, I guess, but for me, like, even riding the buses in Disney World feels more than just riding a bus.
Yeah.
Like, every transportation method that they have in Disney World feels like it's more than just a way to get from here to there. Right. Of course, the monorail and the Skyliner, I feel like, elevate that, but, like, even the buses are more than just, well, I'm just going to sit down here. And it's not like a city bus. It feels way different. It feels more exciting, and maybe that's just because you're in Disney and you're excited. But
I know one of the things that I liked that we used to do when we would go down there is we would do the Disney Vacation Club like preview. Yeah. And even that didn't feel like it was just a transportation device.
It was literally just a Chevy van.
Right. But the driver had like all this knowledge and stuff. And you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. That's so cool.
So cool.
Stuff. So yeah.
Well, yeah. So monorails are very different, but also the same. But well, now especially because Disneyland has the Mark 7 and Disney's still in the Mark 5 or 6. Yeah, Disney World's still on the Mark 6. Yeah. Disneyland's got the Mark 7. Are we ever getting new monorails in Disney World?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Disney World, are they going to ever do the Mark 8?
It's been discussed for probably a decade and a half now.
When was the last upgrade? Like 15 years ago or more? Really? Wow.
It was in the 80s. We got the Mark 6s in the 80s.
Wow. Okay. Well.
Yeah. And they're talking about, it sounds to me more like the next generation is going to be, it's not even going to be a Mark 8. They're just going to call it something else. Like the Disney World monorail or something.
On the monorail topic still, before we jump off that. One of the things that I like at Disneyland about the monorail, now this was back in 2017, that they don't do at Disney World anymore, is you could ride in the front with the monorail pilot at Disneyland, and you can't at Disney World anymore. They had an accident sometime in
2011, wasn't it?
2012, somewhere in there.
It was either when we lived there still or right before we moved there, I think.
Yeah, and they had an accident, and now they don't let guests ride up there. So I do like that aspect at Disneyland because that's kind of cool to be able to ride in the front of the monorail with the pilot.
Got the bummer news for you. They don't do it in Disneyland anymore either.
Oh, they don't? Okay, well, 2017, I have the picture. It was very cool.
Our second day there was my birthday. And it was in Disneyland because I was going to Galaxy's Edge. I want to spend most of my birthday in Galaxy's Edge because I'm a Star Wars doofus. Exhibit my shirt. Yeah. And we took the monorail, and I was wearing the button that said it's my birthday. And I asked them, like, can I ride in the front? Today's my birthday. Because I'm like, if I'm gonna get it, it's because it's my birthday. And they're like, no, we don't do that anymore. I'm sorry. There's new regulations in place, so they don't let people ride up front anymore.
And when Dad and I went in 2017 versus when you went this year, COVID happened between all that. So I wonder if that didn't play a role in some of that.
It might have, but I would think that with all the other restrictions lifting, that if that was a COVID precaution, that it would have lifted as well. But
I don't know.
Big bummer. Okay. I wish it was still a thing. I got really excited because I thought that we were going to be able to, especially because the canopies are color matched to the train color. So like when you're on monorail orange in Disneyland, the dome over the front, the canopy is orange tinted glass. Oh, nice. So inside of it is like orange.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then when you're on monorail blue, same thing, but blue and red, obviously.
Do they just have the 3?
Yeah, they only have the 3. Oh. Monorail orange, monorail blue, and monorail red.
Interesting.
I thought they had a yellow one, but there must have Mandela affected that one because I can't find it when I Google it. But
interesting.
Yeah, they only have the 3 monorails there, and the whole time we were there, we only ever saw 2. I think there was only ever blue and orange active the 3 days that we were there.
Interesting. But okay.
Anyway, my furnace just kicked on.
Yeah,
which is weird. That means my heater's on, isn't it?
That's what that means.
It's the first time I've turned my heater on since I've been here, and it's kind of weird. But anyway, Cool. So that was our last ride. We're going to jump down now to more the broader spectrum things, kind of more attraction based or overall things, I guess. First and foremost there is characters. Meet and greets and such. Did I start on monorails or did you start on monorails?
I don't know because I started on Splash Mountain, so maybe I started on monorail.
Yeah, I think if we followed the train correctly, you should have been monorail, but I don't remember now.
We'll see.
But anyway, so characters. I'll let you start it anyway. Why not?
So you and I have kind of talked about this a little bit.
Yes.
One of the newest characters that they have at Epcot that is a new meet and greet. It's not a new character.
Right.
The character has been around since I think either 83 or 84.
I believe it was opening day.
Okay. So my favorite character, which is Figment.
You don't say.
I know. It's so funny, isn't it?
For our podcast listeners, she is in fact wearing a Figment t-shirt.
That's right. And when the ride originally opened, it was Journey into Imagination. I believe that's what it was. Journey into Imagination. And it was with Dreamfinder and Figment. And it was a completely different ride. And Dreamfinder and Figment helped you find your imagination.
Right.
And then you exited the ride. Some of the things that are still there were originally there. Like there's like a symphony thing, but where you can like put your arms in these open spaces and it kind of reads your arms and then it puts music on the screen behind it.
That is
various
allegedly
things like that.
Playing the notes you're
it's
conducting.
Not at all. At all. It's just not. So one of the newest things that they did, originally they had Dreamfinder come out with Figment. And Figment was about, I don't know, like 15, 18 inches tall, maybe 2 feet. I don't know, somewhere in there. Little guy that Dreamfinder held because he was actually
puppet.
Yeah. So he was actually the puppet or the puppeteer. And then he had like a fake hand that came around. So it looked like he was holding him, but he was really moving. And Figment was like this little guy. Mm-hmm. And they've reimagined that, much to my dismay.
Oh.
Because now he's like 7 feet tall.
Oh.
And it's scary because he's not, even on the ride, he's still little.
Yeah.
But then the meet and greet is like he's huge.
Okay.
And I tried to go. So you and I talked about that and you're like, no, you have to go. You have to go. And I tried to go and he's scary.
Yeah. This is all making sense now.
Okay.
Because when you first sent me the picture, you're like, this is unsettling. And she sends me this picture of Figment at the queue for the meet and greet and Figment standing over there. And she says, this is unsettling. And I'm like, what is she talking? It's Figment. Like I knew about Dreamfinder and Figment's walk around character, but I never experienced it. So it's kind of like just off there. But now that I'm realizing that you experienced that.
Yes.
And that was the Figment you knew. And now suddenly he's a giant,
exactly.
more of a dragon than.
Exactly. Like, it's
I
not
got
even
it
that.
now.
Like,
I get why it's weird.
Hopefully you can find some pictures to fill in here.
Well, I don't put them in the video.
Okay, so
I don't go that deep, but I might throw them on.
Might throw them on
Instagram.
These are the pictures we're talking about. But if you could see it, you'd be like, oh my gosh, he's so cute. And that's what he was. He was 100% cute.
Sure I've seen the pictures.
But the tall one is like him. He's got big eyes and he's got a big head, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's
weird.
just not my Figment. And I even had like, I want to say it was probably an 84 or 85. Was one of the last purchases I made of a Figment type thing. And I had a Figment acrylic keychain. And I don't have it anymore, but I was like, oh, it was so OG. Bad.
So that's cool. That's a new thing. I haven't seen that yet. I don't know when I'll get to see it, but hopefully soon. But the thing that is super different between Disneyland and Disney World is, like I mentioned a minute ago, you sent me a picture of Figment and the queue of people lining up to meet him.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they have meet and greets like that in Disneyland, but what I prefer with Disneyland, I love it. And they do it in Galaxy's Edge and Disney World too, a little bit, I think. I've honestly never seen it. Because I don't know. Well, it was 2021, so they weren't doing a whole lot of walkarounds. I guess they did have the walkarounds with like Kylo Ren and the Stormtroopers. And I think we saw Chewbacca when we were there in Disney World. But in Disneyland, we saw Kylo Ren and some stormtroopers, and then we saw Chewbacca and Rey, and we also got to see later Fennec Shand and Boba Fett.
Oh wow!
They were the only ones in the park. Well, I think Grogu and Mando might have been in the park when we went, but we didn't see them or anything when we were out.
I think they were new. They were like
they're
fresh.
brand new. Yeah. So I like the walk aroundness, and I like that in Disneyland you don't just get that in Galaxy's Edge. You get that throughout the entire park.
Okay.
You get Peter Pan just running around, and he'll literally run up to you and be like, "Hey, I need your help finding my shadow," and he'll just start tugging you around. Like, probably not me,
but maybe because you look like Peter Pan.
Maybe. Maybe he thinks I'm his shadow.
Maybe.
But like they'll pull around the kid, and they'll get kids get so excited about it. And honestly, like I've said millions of times, I'm the child inside, so I get excited. And I like that aspect. Now, me and Caleb had talked about it outside of podcast, where we were like, part of me wonders if the reason that the walk around characters are more common in Disneyland, and they kind of just became that way, and they just are, is because they don't have the utilidors like they do in Disney World.
Right.
Where in Disney World they can literally go backstage and disappear.
Yes.
And like in Disneyland, it's a lot harder to just disappear. You have to very clearly walk off stage, and so they're like, we might as well make it a show. And
that's right.
I wonder if that's why the walk around character is like more of a thing there.
Maybe.
Why it became a thing, and then it just everyone loves it. I mean, I loved it. I loved walking. When we were in California Adventure, we were eating at the Shawarma Palace, and Spider-Man goes running by, and I'm like, you would not see this in Disney World, aside from the fact that they can't have Spider-Man in Disney World because of legal
logistics
issues.
right there, yeah.
But but
at Disney World, like the only time they had like walk around characters like that were like the in Hollywood Studios. They had the, I don't even know what they were called, but the old time actors and stuff, and they were like, come be in our show and whatever. And they did that on Main Street as well at Magic Kingdom. Those are the only ones that I remember that they really did it. They also have like at Animal Kingdom, they have Divine. Yeah. And Kevin from Up.
Yes.
Right. Those are kind of the only walk-arounds that they have, but I think that they like started it. I don't know when they started it in Disneyland, but I think they started it in Disney World, kind of doing things like that. Right after, like, they started back with after COVID and stuff, when they started opening and stuff, because one of the big things was, especially like at Disney World, right? If you saw Pluto or Mickey and Minnie or Donald or Goofy or whatever, there was always such a long line. Right. And they were trying to cut down on lines and stuff. So I think that's where some of those things came in. They didn't want it to be a big line, but they wanted it to be like a attraction at the same time. So, come look at Kevin. He's walking down the middle of, which is super cool. Towards Dino Land USA or whatever. Yeah. Or in front of Bug's Life or, and here's Divine and you don't even know she's there. And then all of a sudden she's gone and you're like, where'd she go? Right. And then you see a tree trunk movie and you're like, what was that? Did that tree trunk actually move? Was it just me? Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I think because like the Hollywood actors, like the people of Hollywood, I think is what they call it in Hollywood studios. That's been a thing for a long time. But I think Mike and the people on Main Street USA, they kind of had people that would Citizens of Hollywood. That's what it was called, yeah. And they'd also have like the Citizens of Main Street USA. Yeah. And I'm like, I forgot about that, but you're kind of right. They were kind of the original walk around characters in Disney World. But I would also say that it's still different, like vastly, because it's the Citizens of Hollywood. They're not meant to be anyone you recognize. They're just meant to It's not Chewbacca. There. It's not Rey.
Exactly. And like in Disneyland, you're still getting, and you were before COVID even, getting Peter Pan running up to you, Wendy running up to you. You could see Captain Hook. I'm sticking with Peter Pan. I'm trying to get out of Peter Pan, but I can't think of any other characters.
Well, they had Jack Sparrow. They've done Jack Sparrow, but I've seen that in Disney World too. Yeah. Not personally, but like on YouTube videos and stuff. We've seen it at Disney World personally because that's one of your Grandma Jan's favorite characters, and she swears that he's, every time we see him, that's Johnny Depp. It's not. I think one time it was, but it's not for a long time. No. I don't think we've ever gotten that lucky, but
Cool. So we'll jump off the characters for a minute and we'll give them some room to breathe. And I wanted to briefly talk about how the queues are the same but different. And then I realized as I've been kind of talking that they're really not the same, aside from the fact that they serve the same function, and that is to get people in a single file line.
That they do.
Yeah. I guess the biggest difference, go ahead.
I was going to say the queue for example, for Hyperspace Mountain versus Space Mountain, completely different.
Vastly different.
Because when I went last time, well, I did go in 2018, but when I went in 2016, which was the first time I had been since 88, you made this big circle and you kind of ended up going up on top of what was previously their people mover.
Yeah.
But you're outside. You're outside a lot more, I think, at Disneyland.
Definitely.
Than you are at Disney World. Disney World is like, as soon as they can, they want to get you in the building.
Right.
I would like to think that part of that is because the weather is vastly different.
Yeah.
In Florida versus California.
That probably
so we want to put you inside before it downpours on you.
Right.
And the more people we can keep inside, the more, you're going to end up in a gift shop if it's a good ride.
Right.
If not, you won't.
Right. You probably still end up in a gift
Jungle
shop.
Cruise. And
that's fair.
So I think that's maybe why, that's one of my big differences, why I prefer the queues at Disney World over Disneyland.
Yeah, I agree.
Just
with
those
that.
few queues, but
yeah,
almost all of them are outside at Disneyland.
Almost, yeah, most of them. I think some of the newer attractions probably are the only ones that are more indoors. One of the queues that came into my mind while we were talking about that was actually the Star Tours queue, because the first time I went on it in Disneyland, I kept running into the handrails.
Oh gosh.
Because it's backwards. Like once you get past C-3PO and R2-D2 on the Starliner,
right,
and you go around that other corner, it goes a different direction in Disney World than it does in Disneyland, and I was getting confused because I thought I knew where I was. And everything that I was seeing was telling me I knew where I was, but it was just on the wrong side. It was like looking at it through a mirror. Oh my gosh. Trying to navigate looking at it through a mirror.
That's funny.
So that was one that I was just popped into my mind that was like the same but different.
Right.
Where you're like, it's all the same props are here, but it's in the wrong spot. So anyway.
Something it's not on this list. I apologize. I'm jumping.
You're good.
One of the things that's different with California versus Florida parks is the restaurants. So they all have quick service at Disneyland.
Yeah.
And at California Adventure.
Yeah.
Where are the table service restaurants at Disneyland?
I can't name one.
I think there's like 2 at Disneyland, maybe 3, and 1 at California Adventure. Whereas Disney World,
they have a lot more.
There's
table
a
service.
lot more table service. Table service is,
It's
for those of you who
1-to-1.
don't know, table service is just a sit down and you have a waiter and that sort of thing. It might be all you care to eat, or it might be a la carte where you choose a meal that you're going to eat and that sort of thing, versus quick service, which is basically fast food.
Right.
And then the dining places. So those dining places, but like when you go to, even if you go to a quick service restaurant, there's more that are inside in Florida versus California, which the majority of them were outside. They might have a sail over but it's not a roof.
Right.
I don't think it rains as much in California, but
I don't think it rained a drop when we were there.
Yeah.
I don't feel like if it was going to, it would do it in June, but I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't. The thing was for me when we were there, we were never intending to eat at a table service restaurant.
Oh.
So that wasn't even on my radar. But now that you mention it, I'm like, I don't think I could name one. I don't even know.
You're right.
I think Carthay Circle Theater.
Yeah.
Is I think that's one. Diner, a eating place. But I can't think of any other ones. There's one more. The Lamplight Lounge in Disney's California Adventure.
Oh, okay.
I didn't go, but I know it exists because every time I see a TikTok about Disneyland, it almost always has to do with that. But yeah.
Goodness. Yeah.
So yeah, that was dining. Excellent. Throw it on there.
Yeah.
The next thing that we wanted to talk about was suggested by Caleb, and it was a thing that wasn't even thinking about it. I was thinking, like, when I first sat down to write the show notes for this, I was only thinking of rides, but then he started bringing up good points, and I was like, we do need to talk about the California themed lands or parks, I guess, because Disney World and Disneyland both have parks that were themed to California.
Yes.
They have evolved since then, and they're not strictly California based anymore, but there are still large sections in each one of those parks that is California based.
Right.
And that is, again, has it really been another 30 minutes already? It sure has.
Sorry.
Hey, it's not your fault. I like it. I love it. Every time I sit down to do one of these podcasts, I'm like, please last more than 30 minutes. So anytime that thing stops recording twice, I'm like, nice. That means we've got almost an hour of podcast. So
I mean, it's going to be great.
pause, please. We'll be right back. We're back. Sorry. Thought what I did would fix it. Didn't. So here we are. I'll keep doing it until it runs out. Someday, like I was telling Mom when it stopped, I was like, when I finally start getting ad reads and sponsorships, that's exactly where I'll throw them, because it'll be nice and convenient. But I don't have them yet, so it's just instantaneous cuts for you guys. So enjoy them. So what I was talking about was the California themed parks, and that is going to be Disney's California Adventure, which is obviously when it opened, it was themed to Disney California, and then of course there was Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Okay.
Backtrack, Disney's MGM Studios when it opened.
That's right.
So those were two parks that were themed around California.
That's true.
Different areas, San Francisco mostly, but more Northern California, I guess, for California Adventure, and then Hollywood, LA, for Hollywood Studios. So the same but different. They're both themed to California.
They are.
It was California's existence that inspired those parks.
Yeah.
But the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm realizing that they are still very obviously vastly different things. I mean,
right.
I've been to California twice now, which is not a lot of times to go to California. But the first time I went to San Francisco, and then I also ended up going down to Santa Barbara, which is still the furthest north I've ever been is San Francisco, which is not very far north.
No.
But based on I don't know why I said based on. That's not where that sentence is going at all. But then the only other place I've been to is Anaheim for Disneyland.
Right.
But so like the two environments are super different.
They are. They really are.
And I feel like now that I'm thinking about it more, like being in those areas, I know that Anaheim isn't LA, but it was close
enough.
As close as I'm willing to get. Hour south, I guess, is not super close, but I mean, when you look at Denver, like,
yeah,
you can be an hour away and still be in Denver without being in Denver. But anyway, I think, especially I can speak for California Adventure, the San Francisco themed area I liked a lot, and it felt very California to me, at least San Francisco.
Like with a pier and
yeah,
that's very San Francisco. It's very much like Fisherman's Wharf up there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could see like the Grizzly River Run. That's very.
See, that one was over my head. I don't know what that's supposed to be like because I didn't see any mountains while I was there.
Okay, so there are mountains. So that area is more like Yosemite.
Okay.
Okay, and that's the Grand Californian Hotel.
Right.
Is actually kind of supposed to be part of that, I think.
I think so.
I don't know. I can't speak necessarily to the Soaranova, California, but
that was a shoehorn kind of deal.
Yeah, some of those things are very much like that area of California. Yeah. I mean, Yosemite is not very far from. I used to live in Cupertino, which is south of San Francisco, and we went out actually for a day trip to Yosemite.
Okay.
And we would have gotten back, at a good time, except for we got lost and ended up back at Yosemite. So that was like,
whoops.
Oops.
Granddad adventure right there.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. Big granddad adventure right there. We didn't get home until
be dad adventure though.
Yes, it was a dad adventure at that point. And we didn't even get home until like 3:00 in the morning. And poor granddad had to go to work that day. But anyway.
Oof.
And with Hollywood Studios, MGM Studios I still call it MGM Studios.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
That's
young
what
enough that
was.
it changed between my first trip there and my second trip there, so
Right.
it's pretty easy for me to
Right.
to just stick with to call it by its current name.
Yeah, because you didn't really know it.
Not really.
So the first time I went to MGM Studios was when Dad and I went for our honeymoon. And there were only 3 parks at that point. So there was Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and MGM Studios. And so there weren't very many things. But it was very much after California because the big thing out there was Universal. There was no Universal Orlando at that point.
Right.
And so one of the big draws was being able to see the back, not the backside of water, but the back lot of how movies were made and things like that. And when we went, there were 2 big movies that had come out. One was Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The other one was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was a working movie set. Like they filmed, I think it was Dick Tracy.
Yes.
There. And it was a working movie set. And that was the whole idea, was to have a different location option. It didn't all have to be in California at the Burbank Studios or whatever.
Right.
And they had that option. And so they did utilize it quite a bit. They had Let's Make a Deal, which was a game show there. They had another game show, but I can't remember what it was. And then they had a walking tour of the backlot. And it was basically, they kind of pulled people out of the audience and said, this is how we did this particular shot, where the kids on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids were on Auntie and they were riding on him and stuff. And they showed how they did that, or the bees, how they did the scene where they strapped him on and filmed him on the bees. And then they ended up, you walk a little farther, and then it went to what as the backlot tour. Yeah. Which was where they chose people out of the audience to be the crew on the boat.
Was that supposed to be a Pearl Harbor sequence? Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, except for before they made the movie Pearl Harbor. It was, it always had that kind of sense.
Oh, okay.
But once they made the movie Pearl Harbor, they're like, this is a great place to tie this in.
Yeah.
But it didn't used to be tied in there. And then they had the tram tour of the back lot, and they had neighborhoods set up. So it was like the Golden Girls house and a show they used to have on called Empty Nest, and the Leave It to Beaver house, and some ride vehicles from like Flight of the Navigator, and various sets and props and things like that. They always had the costuming thing. They had Earful Tower. Was so cool to go and through. They always had what was the canyon called? Catastrophe Canyon. They had that, and it was fantastic. I know.
That was my favorite part.
And then for I want to say it was, I can't remember what year it was, like maybe the 25th anniversary or something. They decided to take out all those houses. Oh, and then they had the Streets of America as well. And then they had this Honey, I Shrunk the Kids play area and all this. And it was really fun. And a lot of that, even when you went, so that was in 1990. And then even when you went, a lot of that was still there.
Yeah, in 2005 when we went.
Yeah. And I think they started taking down
I think the walking part was gone.
Yeah, the walking part was gone at that point. Yep. And they had, sorry, my screen went blank.
That's okay.
And they were starting to take down some of the buildings. Oh, they had the clock tower from
Back to the
Future.
Yes.
Yes. And like the big, not gargoyles, but whatever they were, the big panther things, whatever.
Yeah.
They had all that. And they started to slowly take those things away. And then like for the 25th or 30th anniversary of maybe Disney in general, I don't know what it was.
Maybe Disney World.
Started taking the whole sets out.
Oh, that would have been.
They started reconsidering if they were going to continue filming things there. And then that's when they brought in Lights, Motor, Action.
Which I loved.
Which I love too.
I'm not going to lie. That was still cool.
I just wish they could have had both.
Yeah.
Without getting rid of.
And that's exactly the same way that I feel now with Galaxy's Edge. Because Galaxy's Edge sits where Lights, Motors, Action and Catastrophe Canyon did.
Right.
So I'm like, I wish I could have had both. But because I'm a Star Wars nerd, I would rather have the one. If I can only have one, I'd rather have Galaxy's Edge. But
exactly.
I wish I could have both.
It's not like they don't have enough land in Disney World for that.
They could have just built a whole fifth gate for Star
Right?
Wars. That would have been cool.
That would have been fine.
Billions of dollars. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know what I wanted to talk about exactly with that, other than the fact that they both have both Disneyland and Disney World have parks themed to California.
Yeah,
but
they have
it's cool.
They're themed in their roots. Like
Yeah.
where it all started. And you know what else I like? And I will go as far as to say this is Walt Disney based.
Yeah.
Main Street USA is based on his hometown of Marceline, Missouri.
Right.
And that's what they're both supposed to make you feel like. You're in hometown, downtown area.
And they do a great job.
And they do a great job.
Both.
They do a great job.
Final fun fact about that. I'm sure you know this. If you don't, I'm going to be amazed. But
Let's see.
So in Disneyland, Main Street USA is supposed to be inspired by, Walt wanted it because he wanted it to remind him of Marceline. But it was actually the design, the architecture, all of the design of Main Street USA is actually based off of Fort Collins. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
This is one of those things where I fail as a Disney freak.
Because you know it, but you don't know why you know it or where you saw it.
I know exactly. I know it from I think it's the Imagineering story on Disney Plus. And the name Tony Baxter is coming to mind, but I don't think that's who it is. It might be, but whatever Imagineer Walt tasked with designing Main Street USA was from Fort Collins.
Oh my goodness!
And so he flew home and took pictures all the way up and down. I don't think it's called Main Street in Fort Collins, but
it's not.
Whatever their main street is, he took pictures of that, and that's what they used to inspire Main Street USA.
Oh goodness!
So, what was weird is when I walked down Main Street USA for the first time.
At Disney World or
at
Disneyland?
Disneyland.
Okay.
I distinctly remember being like, because me and Adriana had spent some time up in Fort Collins, and I distinctly remember being like, this feels eerily like Fort Collins.
Okay.
And there's like a particular clock that's on Main Street USA.
Oh.
And I was looking at it, and I'm like, I swear I know that clock.
Oh my goodness.
And then after I saw that in the Imagineering story, or remembered that in the Imagineering story, I'm like, the clock in Fort Collins looks familiar because that's what they used to design the one that's sitting on Main Street USA in Disneyland. So.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
As far as main streets go, I do like Disney World better than Disneyland. I feel like it's longer.
It is.
And plus, at Disney World, when you get to the end where the castle is, it's a much bigger, more brilliant castle.
Yeah.
Than Sleeping Beauty Castle.
Sleeping Beauty Castle is so cute, though.
What I like about Sleeping Beauty Castle is it's OG.
How did I not put the castles on here?
I don't know.
I guess it's because I don't feel like they're the same at all.
They're not the same.
So
they are
it's more
so
like
vastly different.
Yeah.
They are so vastly different. Yes, there's a castle. I mean, we can talk about all the theme park, all the Disney parks around the world. They all have a castle.
Right.
They are vastly different.
Yeah.
What I like about Disneyland is that was Walt's first vision for his theme park.
Yeah.
It has to have a castle because castles were magical. And even in the planning stage, and with Disney World, he fashioned Cinderella Castle after Neuschwanstein.
Yeah.
And he knew it had to be bigger and more brilliant.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was like his last, hey, this has to be bigger than that was.
Yeah.
And
he was right.
So he was right.
Beautiful.
He was right.
I love Cinderella Castle.
I do too. I
hope it's on here.
I don't know.
Oh boy. Well, I think that's all we've got time for tonight. We're starting to get into the hours here, but thanks for joining me today, Mom. I had a great time talking about that. I was worried when I wrote those out that it wasn't going to be enough, but of course I was like, it's me and Mom. I'm notorious for talking a lot, and I got it from her. So when we're in the same room, it's basically nonstop. It's hard to get us to shut up.
Let alone if we get started singing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're not going to do that now, though.
No.
Yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of Noah Parker's World of Wonder. We are available, of course, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you already knew that. And if you're watching on YouTube, you already knew that. But if you're watching on, whatever one you're not listening to, check us out over there too. Make sure you follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. The channel if you are listening on a podcast service, it is you can go to youtube.com/@NoahParkersWorld. No, I do that every time. I wrote it out so I wouldn't say it wrong, and I still said it wrong. You go to youtube.com/@NoahParker_channel, and that will take you to the YouTube channel so you can see the video version of our podcast that we've recently down-res to 1080p to try to fix some camera issues and also save me a little bit of frustration while I'm editing because it's a podcast. The point is the audio, not so much the video. So, and 1080p is more than enough footage, more than enough resolution. But anyway, I digress. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Noah Parker's World of Wonder. That's where that goes. But yeah, so if you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe, follow us on the podcast, and leave a rating. And until next time, guys, let the wonder take hold.